Get your black ass out before I drag you out. Officer Richard Davis's palm cracked across Dr. Samantha Williams's face. Her head snapped sideways. The legal briefcase hit marble floor with a thunderous crash. She straightened slowly. No tears, no screaming. Just steady brown eyes meeting his furious glare. Davis grabbed her wrist, metal handcuffs already in his other hand. You people always think you can waltz in here like you own the place. The woman in simple jeans and blazer said nothing, but something flickered behind her calm expression. Something dangerous. Court security cameras rolled. A live stream started. Within minutes, this moment would explode across social media. These real-life stories of injustice happen daily in America's courts. Black stories like this expose systemic racism. Such touching stories reveal why change is desperately needed. This particular woman held power that would destroy Davis completely. Have you ever been slapped by someone who had no idea who you really were? Dr. Williams entered through the public entrance at 9:47 a.m. She wore dark jeans and a simple navy blazer. Her leather briefcase bore a small, barely visible federal court seal near the handle. Davis spotted her immediately. His eyes narrowed as she approached the security checkpoint. Another defendant, he assumed. Probably here for drug charges or welfare fraud. ID, he barked, stepping directly into her path. Williams reached into her blazer pocket calmly. Davis's hand moved to his weapon. Slowly, he warned. She produced a driver's license. Davis examined it with exaggerated suspicion. Samantha Williams, what's your business here? I have a meeting with Judge Anderson at 10 o'clock. Davis laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off marble walls. Right, and I'm meeting the president for lunch. Williams gestured toward her briefcase. May I show you my... Don't move. Davis snatched the briefcase from her hands. He dumped the contents onto the security table. Legal documents scattered, a laptop clattered against metal. This is a court of law, Davis announced loudly, not your neighborhood community center. Several court employees stopped to watch. A young court reporter named Ashley pulled out her phone. She'd seen Davis harass people before. This felt different. Worse. Williams remained perfectly still as Davis rifled through her papers. These look fake, he declared, holding up official-looking documents. You can't just print court letterhead at Kinko's. Officer, if you'll just call Judge Anderson's chambers. He doesn't have time for people like you. Davis stepped closer, using his size to intimidate. You probably can't even read half these words. Ashley started recording. The live stream notification popped up on her Instagram. Bailiff harassing black woman at courthouse. She angled her phone to capture Davis's aggressive posturing. Williams spoke quietly. I understand you're doing your job, but I really do have an appointment. Your appointment is with the public defender. Down the hall, third door on the right. That's where your kind belongs. The live stream viewer count climbed. 20 people, 50. Comments started flooding in. This is disgusting. Someone call his supervisor. Is this really happening? Davis grabbed Williams's arm roughly. Let's go. You're disrupting court business. Actually, I believe I'm expected in conference room A. Conference room A? Davis's voice dripped with mockery. That's for attorneys and judges, real ones. Williams pulled a small card from her wallet. Davis barely glanced at it before shoving it back. Fake ID won't work here, sweetheart. The card had landed face down on the floor. Ashley's camera caught a glimpse of official federal court credentials before Davis kicked it under the security table. I need to retrieve that, Williams said calmly. You need to leave before I arrest you for trespassing. More people gathered. A maintenance worker, 2 attorneys, a court clerk. Ashley's live stream hit 200 viewers. Davis radioed for backup. I need assistance at the main entrance. Unruly defendant refusing to comply. Williams checked her watch. 9:55 a.m. Officer Davis, I really must insist you contact Judge Anderson. How do you know my name? She nodded toward his badge. Davis looked down, then back up with renewed suspicion. You've been watching me. Planning something. His paranoia escalated. Probably casing the building. I assure you that's not... Don't assure me of anything. Davis's voice rose. I've dealt with your type before. Always got some scheme, some angle. Williams's briefcase lay open on the table. Legal briefs marked confidential were visible. Constitutional law conference materials. A folder labeled DOJ Police Reform Initiative. But Davis saw none of it. His bias blinded him completely. Ashley's phone buzzed with notifications. The live stream had exploded to 1,000 viewers. Screenshots were being shared across social media. Number-sign courthouse racism started trending locally. Sir, Williams tried one more time, if you would just... I would just what? Let you waltz into a federal courthouse like you own it? The irony hung in the air, invisible to everyone except Williams herself. 2 more security guards approached. Davis waved them over triumphantly. Help me escort this woman to the exit. She's clearly confused about where she belongs. Williams stood surrounded now. 4 armed men, dozens of witnesses, thousands watching online. She remained motionless as Davis reached for his handcuffs again. At exactly 10 a.m., Judge Anderson's chamber door opened. But what happened next would change everything Davis thought he knew about power. Judge Anderson stepped into the hallway at exactly 10:02 a.m., checking his Rolex. He wore his black judicial robes, ready for the constitutional law briefing that would shape federal court policy. His eyes scanned the crowd gathering near security. What's all this commotion? He asked his senior clerk, Margaret Wilson. Davis straightened like a soldier, eager to impress the judge he'd served for 3 years. Just handling an unruly defendant, Your Honor. She's been disrupting court proceedings for 20 minutes. Anderson's gaze moved toward Williams, who stood perfectly motionless among the 4 armed security guards. Something flickered across his weathered face: confusion, then growing concern. Disrupting proceedings, how exactly? Claims she has some kind of appointment with you. Davis chuckled, the sound echoing off marble walls. In conference room A, no less. As if someone like her would ever set foot in there. The live stream viewer count hit 5,000 on Ashley's Instagram feed. Her hands trembled slightly as she kept recording. Comments poured in faster than she could read them. This is absolutely insane. Someone needs to stop this now. Where is his supervisor? This is America in 2025. 2 additional security guards arrived from the East Wing. Captain Jennifer Moore descended the grand staircase, her radio crackling with updates. She'd received multiple emergency calls about a major disturbance involving potential civil rights violations. Davis, give me a full situation report. Trespasser, Captain, African-American female, approximately 40 years old. Attempted to gain unauthorized access to restricted judicial chambers using forged documentation. Moore surveyed the scene with trained eyes. A composed black woman in civilian clothes, surrounded by 6 armed officers. Dozens of courthouse employees watching. Phone cameras recording from multiple angles. Ma'am, Moore addressed Williams directly, her tone professional but cautious. Do you have legitimate business in this federal courthouse? Yes, Captain. I have a scheduled 10 a.m. meeting regarding the Department of Justice Police Reform Initiative. Davis snorted loudly. She's completely delusional, Captain. Probably suffering from some kind of mental breakdown, maybe drug-induced paranoia. Williams reached slowly toward her scattered legal documents on the security table. Davis immediately grabbed her wrist with enough force to leave bruises. I said don't move a muscle. Officer, you're physically hurting her, Ashley called out, still live streaming to thousands. Mind your own damn business, girl, Davis snapped back. The live stream count exploded past 8,000 viewers. Local news outlets began sharing the video across their social media platforms. Courthouse abuse joined courthouse racism in trending topics nationwide. Anderson moved closer, studying Williams's face with increasing intensity. Something about her bearing, her calm dignity, triggered memories he couldn't quite place. "Ma'am, could you please state your full legal name for the record?" "Dr. Samantha Williams." Davis rolled his eyes theatrically. "Doctor of what? Street pharmaceuticals? Community college remedial studies?" Several backup officers chuckled at his joke. The humor fell completely flat with courthouse staff and witnesses. Captain Moore felt the situation deteriorating rapidly. "Davis, I need you to ease up immediately. Let the woman speak without interruption. Captain, with all due respect, I've been handling these types of people for 15 years. I know exactly how they operate. The phrase, 'these people,' hung in the courthouse air like toxic gas." Ashley's live stream chat erupted in digital outrage. Screenshots began flooding Twitter and Facebook. Williams maintained perfect composure. "Officer Davis, could you clarify what you mean by 'these people'?" "You know exactly what I mean, lady." The racist mask slipped completely away. Pure, undiluted hatred filled his voice. Several witnesses gasped audibly. Anderson stepped forward with judicial urgency. "Officer Davis, I strongly advise you to—" "Your Honor, please don't let her manipulate the situation. They're incredibly skilled at playing the victim card to get what they want." The live stream reached 12,000 viewers. Screenshots flooded social media platforms. 3 local news vans were already speeding toward the courthouse. Moore attempted immediate damage control. "Ma'am, if you could just produce proper government identification." She already attempted to. Attorney Charles Brown spoke up from the growing crowd. "Officer Davis deliberately destroyed her credentials without examination." Davis whirled around aggressively. "Stay out of this, old man. This doesn't concern you. I'm Attorney Charles Brown of Brown and Associates. I witnessed this entire unlawful detention from the beginning." Brown had arrived early for his own federal hearing. Instead, he found himself documenting systematic police misconduct. Williams remained perfectly centered amid the escalating chaos. "Captain Moore, if I could simply retrieve my federal credentials from underneath the security table—" "She's reaching for a concealed weapon!" Davis shouted hysterically. The accusation was completely absurd. Everyone present could clearly see Williams's empty hands raised in plain sight. But Davis drew his bright yellow taser anyway. Shocked gasps echoed throughout the marble lobby. Ashley's phone camera captured the electric weapon pointed directly at an unarmed woman's chest. "Davis, stand down immediately," Moore commanded with authority. "She represents a clear and present danger, Captain." "I can sense it." Anderson had witnessed enough constitutional violations. "Officer Davis, lower your weapon this instant." "Your Honor, you simply don't understand what these people are truly capable of." "I understand perfectly well." Anderson's voice carried decades of judicial authority. "Lower your weapon right now." Davis hesitated, his entire career hanging in the balance. But his deep-seated racial hatred ran much deeper than professional self-preservation. "Your Honor, I'm protecting this federal courthouse from domestic threats. You're threatening an unarmed civilian with a potentially lethal weapon." The live stream viewer count hit 18,000. Major news networks picked up the story. Federal courthouse taser began trending nationally within minutes. Williams spoke with supernatural calm. "Officer Davis, despite everything, I forgive you completely." Her words stopped everyone completely cold. Forgiveness in the face of pure hatred. Divine grace under ultimate pressure. Davis's finger twitched dangerously near the trigger mechanism. "Don't you dare patronize me, woman." "I'm not patronizing anyone. I'm offering you one final chance to de-escalate this situation." "De-escalate?" Davis laughed with genuine mania. "You march into my courthouse, disrupt my security protocols, resist my lawful authority." "Actually," Williams said with quiet certainty. "It's not your courthouse." Something profound in her tone made everyone freeze completely. Not defiance, not anger, just absolute, unshakable certainty. "What did you just say to me?" "I said it's not your courthouse, Officer Davis." The federal court credentials card lay completely forgotten underneath the overturned security table. Williams's open briefcase displayed DOJ materials to anyone who bothered looking. But Davis saw only what his prejudice allowed him to see. Moore sensed dangerous undercurrents. "Ma'am, perhaps we should simply—" "Captain Moore," Williams interrupted gently, "could you please ask Judge Anderson about his scheduled 10 a.m. constitutional law briefing?" Anderson's face drained of all color. The pieces were finally clicking into place. Davis pressed the electrified taser directly against Williams' shoulder. "Stop talking immediately." The weapon touched her blazer fabric. One trigger pull would send 50,000 volts coursing through her body. Ashley's live stream reached 22,000 viewers. The entire confrontation was being recorded simultaneously from 6 different angles. "Officer Davis," Williams said with preternatural calm, "you're about to make the biggest mistake of your entire career." "My career?" Davis laughed maniacally. "Lady, you're about to receive a very painful education about respect and authority." His finger began moving toward the trigger. Judge Anderson finally found his voice. "Dr. Williams, I presume?" The words cut through tension like lightning. Time froze in the federal courthouse lobby. Davis's finger hovered over the taser trigger. His confused expression showed he didn't understand Anderson's words. "Doctor who?" "Dr. Samantha Williams," Anderson repeated slowly, his voice carrying decades of judicial gravitas. "United States District Judge for the Eastern District." The live stream exploded. Ashley's phone nearly slipped from her trembling hands as she captured the moment everything changed. Comments flooded her screen faster than humanly possible. "What? She's a federal judge? Oh my God, oh my God. He's threatening a judge." Davis blinked rapidly, his brain struggling to process the information. "That's impossible. She's "She's what, Officer Davis?" Williams asked quietly. The question hung in marble-walled silence. Davis's mouth opened and closed wordlessly. The taser wavered in his grip. Captain Moore's face drained of all color. She'd spent 23 years in law enforcement. She recognized career-ending disasters when she saw them. "Ma'am," Moore whispered, "are you really—" Williams reached slowly into her blazer's inner pocket. Every eye in the courthouse tracked her movement. She withdrew an official federal court identification card. The credentials were unmistakable. Gold federal seal, her photograph. "The Honorable Dr. Samantha Williams, United States District Judge, Eastern District of Pennsylvania." Davis stared at the ID like it was written in ancient hieroglyphs. "This has to be fake," he stammered. "It's impossible." You can't be." "Can't be what?" Williams's voice remained perfectly calm. Davis's worldview was collapsing in real time. The racist stereotypes that governed his thinking couldn't accommodate this reality. A black woman in jeans couldn't be a federal judge. The cognitive dissonance was breaking his brain. Anderson stepped forward carefully. "Samantha, I am profoundly sorry. We were expecting you for the constitutional law briefing, but when you didn't arrive through the judicial entrance—" "I decided to experience the courthouse as an ordinary citizen might," Williams explained. "I wanted to understand how court security treats the people we serve." The implication hit everyone like a physical blow. This wasn't random harassment. This was a federal judge conducting an impromptu audit of courthouse bias. Ashley's live stream hit 30,000 viewers. Major news networks were frantically scrambling camera crews. The story was going national in real time. "You're lying," Davis said desperately. "Federal judges don't dress like—" Like what, Officer Davis? He couldn't finish the sentence. Every word would damn him further. Attorney Charles Brown had retrieved Williams's scattered papers from the security table. He held up official documents with Department of Justice letterhead. "Officer Davis," Brown announced loudly, "you've been detaining the chair of the Federal Judicial Committee on Police Reform." The courthouse lobby fell silent except for the hum of Ashley's live stream and the distant sound of approaching sirens. Williams's second identity card emerged from her briefcase. This one bore the DOJ seal and her additional title, Special Advisor, Department of Justice Police Reform Initiative. Davis read it 3 times. His hands began shaking uncontrollably. "This can't be happening," he whispered. But it was happening. Live, in front of thousands of witnesses. Moore tried damage control. "Your Honor, Officer Davis was simply following standard security protocols." "Was striking a federal judge part of standard protocol?" Williams asked. The question silenced Moore completely. Davis's fellow officers began backing away from him slowly. They recognized a sinking ship when they saw one. Nobody wanted to be associated with the man who'd assaulted a federal judge. "I didn't know," Davis pleaded. "How was I supposed to know?" "You weren't supposed to know my identity," Williams replied. "You were supposed to treat me with basic human dignity, regardless." The live stream chat had become an unreadable blur of outrage and shock. Screenshots were being shared across every social media platform. #JudgeAssault was trending worldwide. Anderson struggled to restore order. "Perhaps we should move this discussion to my chambers." "No," Williams said firmly. "This conversation happens here, in public, where everyone can see." She gestured toward the crowd of witnesses, the recording phones, the live stream that was documenting everything. "Officer Davis, do you understand what you've done?" Davis's voice cracked. "I was just doing my job." "Your job was to assault me? To call me racial slurs? To threaten me with a weapon?" Each question landed like a hammer blow. Davis had no answers. Williams continued methodically. "You told me I didn't belong in this courthouse." "You said people like me should know our place. You implied I was a drug dealer, a welfare fraud, a threat to public safety." The words echoed off marble walls. Every syllable was being recorded for posterity. "I made a mistake," Davis whispered. "You made dozens of mistakes," Williams corrected. "But they weren't accidents. They were choices, deliberate choices based on the color of my skin." The livestream viewer count hit 50,000. News helicopters circled overhead. The story had exploded beyond anything anyone could have imagined. Captain Moore attempted intervention. "Your Honor, perhaps we could discuss disciplinary action privately." "Captain Moore, this is exactly the kind of thinking that perpetuates these problems," Williams replied. "Hide the misconduct. Handle it internally. Protect the institution." She gestured toward Ashley's phone. "This happened in public. The accountability should happen in public too." Davis finally found his voice. "What do you want from me?" The question everyone was waiting for. Williams considered it carefully. "I want you to understand something, Officer Davis. Power isn't about the uniform you wear or the weapon you carry. Real power comes from serving justice fairly, from treating every person with dignity." She paused, letting the words sink in. "You saw a black woman in casual clothes and decided I was beneath you. You never considered that I might be your superior in every legal sense." The irony was devastating. Davis had been intimidating and assaulting his own boss. Anderson cleared his throat nervously. "Your Honor, should we postpone the constitutional law briefing?" "Actually, Judge Anderson, I think we just had our most important constitutional law lesson right here." Williams gestured toward the crowd of witnesses. Everyone present just witnessed systematic bias in action. They saw how quickly civil rights can be violated. They watched how power can be abused. The live stream had become a real-time civics lesson. Thousands of viewers were learning about judicial authority, civil rights, and the reality of institutional racism. Davis dropped the taser. It clattered against marble floor with finality. "I'm finished, aren't I?" he asked quietly. Williams studied his face. She saw fear, regret, and the first glimmer of understanding. "Officer Davis, that depends entirely on what you do next." The cryptic response left everyone wondering. What did she mean? What was she planning? Ashley's live stream reached 75,000 viewers. The entire nation was watching a federal judge decide the fate of the man who'd assaulted her. But Williams wasn't finished yet. She had one more revelation that would change everything. "Officer Davis, before we discuss your future, there's something else you should know about why I'm really here." Williams reached into her briefcase and withdrew a thick manila folder marked "Confidential, Department of Justice." The federal seal glinted under courthouse fluorescent lights. "This courthouse wasn't randomly selected for my visit, Officer Davis." She opened the folder, revealing charts, statistics, and legal documents. Ashley angled her phone to capture glimpses of the official paperwork as the live stream viewer count climbed past 100,000. The Eastern District Courthouse has been under federal investigation for 6 months. Captain Moore's face went ashen. Investigation for what? Civil rights violations, systematic bias, constitutional misconduct. Williams's voice carried prosecutorial precision. 17 formal complaints filed in the past year alone. She pulled out a statistical summary sheet. The numbers were damning. This courthouse employs 247 security personnel across all shifts. Our investigation revealed that 73% have received zero bias training in the past 24 months. The national average is 43%. Davis stared at the documents like they were his death warrant. Williams continued relentlessly. Federal courthouse security operates on an annual budget of $892 million nationwide. This district receives $12.3 million of that allocation. Judge Anderson shifted nervously. "Your Honor, I wasn't aware of any formal investigation." "The investigation was classified, Judge Anderson, but Officer Davis's conduct this morning just provided us with the evidence we needed." Ashley's live stream chat exploded with legal experts and activists analyzing the revelations in real time. # Federal investigation joined # Judge assault in trending topics. Williams extracted another document. Under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and Section 1983 of the Civil Rights Act of 1871, this courthouse now faces potential federal liability. She cited case law with deadly precision. Monroe v. Pape established that government officials acting under color of law can be held personally liable for constitutional violations. Harlow v. Fitzgerald outlined the standards for qualified immunity, which Officer Davis clearly violated. Davis's breathing became shallow. He was drowning in legal precedent. "The Department of Justice has documented a pattern of discriminatory enforcement in this facility," Williams continued. "African American visitors are detained at rates 340% higher than white visitors. Strip searches occur at rates 280% higher. Complaint procedures are deliberately obscured." Captain Moore attempted damage control. "Your Honor, these statistics might be explained by..." "By what, Captain Moore? By the racial composition of defendants? By socioeconomic factors?" Williams's tone sharpened. "Those explanations would be even more damning." The live stream reached 150,000 viewers. Legal scholars were providing live commentary across social media platforms. Williams revealed the smoking gun document. "Our undercover investigation placed federal agents in this courthouse over the past 3 months. They documented 47 instances of racial profiling, 23 cases of excessive force, and 12 violations of constitutional search and seizure protections." Davis realized he wasn't just facing personal consequences. The entire security department was under federal scrutiny. Officer Davis's conduct this morning wasn't an aberration, Williams explained. It was the predictable result of systematic institutional failure. She addressed Captain Moore directly. Captain, you now have exactly 48 hours to implement comprehensive reform measures, or this courthouse will face federal receivership. Moore's 23-year career flashed before her eyes. What kind of reforms? Williams consulted her prepared list. Mandatory implicit bias training for all security personnel, conducted monthly rather than annually. Real-time body camera monitoring with footage reviewed by external auditors. Anonymous complaint procedures accessible through mobile applications. The specificity was crushing. This wasn't theoretical policy discussion. This was federal ultimatum. Performance reviews will now include bias metrics based on demographic data of detentions, searches, and use of force incidents. Supervisors failing to meet equality standards face immediate suspension. Davis finally found his voice. How long have you been planning this? The investigation began when Maria Rodriguez filed a federal complaint 6 months ago, Williams replied. She was strip-searched in this courthouse while visiting her son's custody hearing. No contraband was found. No reasonable suspicion existed. The name hit Davis like a physical blow. He remembered Rodriguez. He'd ordered that search personally. 3 weeks later, Jennifer Thompson was handcuffed and detained for 2 hours because she looked suspicious in the family court waiting area. She was a licensed social worker attending a professional consultation. More memories flooded back. Davis had participated in that detention too. Last month, Reverend James Wilson was threatened with arrest for loitering while waiting to officiate a courthouse wedding ceremony. He was wearing full clerical attire. The pattern was undeniable. All the victims were people of color. All the incidents involved Davis or his team. Williams addressed the live stream audience directly. These cases represent documented evidence in our federal investigation, but we needed contemporaneous proof of ongoing bias to justify immediate intervention. Ashley's phone captured the moment perfectly. A federal judge explaining constitutional law to 200,000 live viewers while the perpetrator stood 5 feet away. Officer Davis's assault on a federal judge this morning provided that proof. Judge Anderson struggled to comprehend the scope. Your Honor, what are the potential consequences for the courthouse administration? Under federal civil rights law, institutional liability can reach $2.7 million per violation, Williams explained. With 47 documented cases, the exposure exceeds $127 million. The mathematical precision was devastating. This wasn't just about Davis anymore. The entire courthouse faced financial catastrophe. Additionally, the court system could lose federal funding totaling $34.8 million annually. Staff certification programs would be suspended. Judicial appointments could be frozen pending compliance review. Captain Moore realized her department was fighting for survival. Your Honor, what specific steps would satisfy federal requirements? Williams outlined the non-negotiable terms. Complete overhaul of hiring practices to include psychological bias screening. Implementation of the procedural justice application, a real-time monitoring system that tracks every civilian interaction. She explained the technology. Every detention, search, or use of force gets logged with demographic data, duration, and outcome. Patterns of bias trigger automatic supervisor review. The live stream audience was witnessing federal policy creation in real time. Constitutional scholars provided expert commentary as legal history unfolded. Quarterly audits will be conducted by the Southern Poverty Law Center and the American Civil Liberties Union. Results published publicly on federal transparency websites. The oversight was comprehensive and humiliating. The courthouse would operate under federal supervision indefinitely. Williams delivered the ultimate ultimatum. Captain Moore, Officer Davis, Judge Anderson, you have until Monday morning at 9 a.m. to submit your compliance plan. Failure to meet this deadline triggers immediate federal takeover. The deadline was impossibly tight. Institutional change that normally took years would have to happen in 72 hours. Officer Davis, your individual consequences are separate from institutional reforms, Williams continued. You face federal civil rights charges under Section 242 of Title 18. Criminal penalties include up to 10 years imprisonment. Davis's legs nearly buckled. Federal prison time for what he'd considered routine security work. However, Williams added, your cooperation with ongoing investigation could influence prosecutorial discretion. A lifeline appeared. Davis seized it desperately. What kind of cooperation? Full testimony regarding every incident of bias or misconduct you've witnessed or participated in during your tenure. Complete documentation of unofficial policies or practices that enabled discrimination. Williams was offering Davis a deal. Confession in exchange for potential leniency. You have 24 hours to decide, Officer Davis. Cooperate fully or face maximum federal prosecution. The live stream reached 300,000 viewers. Legal experts debated plea bargain strategies while the negotiation happened live. Ashley's phone battery was dying, but she kept recording. This was the story of her lifetime. Williams closed her briefcase with finality. The constitutional law briefing Judge Anderson and I had scheduled. Consider it completed. Everyone present just witnessed federal civil rights enforcement in action. She looked directly into Ashley's camera. This is how systemic change happens. Through law, through evidence, through accountability. The live stream audience erupted in comments. Legal scholars praised the methodical approach. Civil rights activists celebrated the comprehensive reform demands. Davis stood frozen, realizing his career was over regardless of his decision. The only question was whether he'd face federal prison. But Williams wasn't finished. She had one final announcement that would ensure lasting change. Before we conclude, Williams announced to the live stream audience, I want everyone to understand that meaningful reform extends far beyond this courthouse. She withdrew her phone and opened a document. At 11:47 a.m. today, I filed an emergency petition with the Federal Judicial Conference. This incident will serve as the catalyst for nationwide courthouse security reform. Ashley's live stream chat exploded. The story wasn't just local anymore, it was becoming federal policy. Williams continued reading from her phone. The Courthouse Equality Initiative will be implemented across all 94 federal judicial districts within 6 months. Every courthouse, every security checkpoint, every interaction. Judge Anderson realized the scope of what had just happened. Your Honor, you're proposing to restructure the entire federal court security system? I'm not proposing anything, Judge Anderson. I'm announcing what's already been approved. The live stream reached 400,000 viewers as news networks picked up the live feed. This was constitutional history in real time. Officer Davis found his voice again. What happens to me? Williams studied his face carefully. She saw genuine fear, growing remorse, and perhaps the beginning of understanding. Officer Davis, at 11:52 a.m. today, you were suspended without pay pending federal investigation. Your weapons and credentials have been revoked. You're banned from all federal property until criminal proceedings conclude. Davis nodded slowly. His law enforcement career was over. However, Williams added, your cooperation in our investigation could determine whether you face federal prison or community service. She outlined the choice starkly. Full confession and testimony about systematic bias in this courthouse or maximum prosecution under federal civil rights statutes. Captain Moore stepped forward desperately. Your Honor, what about departmental personnel? Are we all facing criminal charges? Captain Moore, individual accountability depends on individual conduct, Williams replied. Officers who participated in or ignored constitutional violations face consequences. Those who report misconduct and support reform will be protected. The offer split the security department immediately. Several officers began distancing themselves from Davis publicly. Williams addressed the broader implications. The procedural justice application will launch nationwide next month. Every civilian interaction in federal courthouses gets logged, analyzed, and audited. She explained the technology in detail. Artificial intelligence monitors detention patterns, search frequencies, and use of force incidents across demographic categories. Bias patterns trigger automatic investigation. The live stream audience watched constitutional law evolve in real time. Legal experts provided commentary as federal policy was announced live. Anonymous reporting systems will be accessible through QR codes posted throughout every courthouse. Complaints go directly to federal oversight committees, bypassing local administration entirely. Captain Moore realized her entire command structure was being dismantled. How quickly will these changes be implemented? Phase 1 begins Monday morning, Williams announced. All security personnel report for mandatory bias training. Those who refuse or fail are terminated immediately. The timeline was ruthless. No appeals process. No gradual transition. Immediate compliance or immediate termination. Williams turned to Judge Anderson. Judge Anderson, you'll receive federal oversight for all administrative decisions until compliance is verified. A Department of Justice monitor will review hiring, training, and disciplinary procedures. Anderson's judicial independence was effectively suspended. Federal oversight would govern his courthouse for the foreseeable future. Officer Davis, Williams addressed him directly, you have until 5 p.m. today to decide. Cooperate fully with federal investigators or face maximum criminal prosecution. Davis looked around the marble lobby. Dozens of witnesses stared at him. The live stream was recording everything. His colleagues had abandoned him. I'll cooperate, he said quietly. Williams nodded. Your attorney can contact federal prosecutors to arrange formal confession and testimony. Your cooperation will be noted in sentencing recommendations. The live stream chat celebrated Davis's capitulation. Justice advocates praised the systematic approach to reform. Ashley's phone battery finally died, but other witnesses had taken over recording. The story would continue documented from multiple angles. Williams addressed the crowd of courthouse employees. Everyone present today witnessed constitutional violations and federal law enforcement response. You're all part of this historical record now. She gestured toward the phones recording from every angle. This footage will be used in training programs nationwide. Your courthouse became the case study for bias reform. The transformation was complete. A routine security checkpoint had become a landmark civil rights moment. Captain Moore made her final attempt at damage control. Your Honor, what happens to officers who weren't involved in today's incident? Captain Moore, federal investigation extends beyond today's events, Williams replied. We have 6 months of documented patterns. Every officer's conduct will be reviewed individually. The comprehensive investigation would examine every security interaction for half a year. Nobody was automatically safe. Williams announced the public accountability measures. Monthly bias statistics will be published on federal court websites. Detention rates, search frequencies, and complaint numbers broken down by demographics. Transparency would replace secrecy. Public scrutiny would prevent future abuse. Community oversight boards will include civil rights advocates, defense attorneys, and local religious leaders. They'll review all significant incidents and recommend policy changes. External oversight would monitor the monitors. The courthouse would operate under constant public examination. Davis stood isolated among the security personnel. His colleagues had formed a protective distance, afraid of guilt by association. Williams offered final guidance. Officer Davis, use this experience to understand how bias destroys lives. Your victims weren't statistics. They were mothers, fathers, professionals, community leaders. The personal dimension humanized the constitutional violations. Each incident had damaged real people pursuing legitimate court business. The federal government will ensure this never happens again, Williams concluded. Not here. Not anywhere. The promise carried the full weight of federal authority. Constitutional rights would be protected through systematic enforcement. Ashley borrowed another phone to resume live streaming. The viewer count had stabilized at 500,000 people watching the conclusion of this historic confrontation. Williams gathered her documents, her federal credentials, her briefcase. She'd accomplished everything she'd planned and more. Judge Anderson, shall we proceed with our constitutional law briefing? I believe we've covered the practical applications quite thoroughly. Anderson nodded weakly. The irony was complete. Williams had turned a racist assault into the most effective constitutional law lesson in federal court history. As they walked toward Conference Room A, Williams paused at the security checkpoint. Davis's abandoned taser lay on the marble floor where he'd dropped it. "Officer Davis," she said quietly, "real power doesn't come from weapons or intimidation. It comes from serving justice fairly for everyone." The lesson was complete. Williams had used intellectual authority, legal precedent, and systematic reform to defeat institutional racism. No violence, no revenge, just law applied with precision and justice delivered with dignity. The courthouse would never be the same. 6 months later, the transformation was undeniable. Ashley Rodriguez, the court reporter whose live stream had captured everything, now worked as the courthouse's community liaison coordinator. Her job was ensuring civilian voices were heard in federal policy decisions. "Judge Williams changed everything," Ashley explained to a group of journalism students touring the reformed courthouse. "Not through anger or revenge, but through systematic application of law." The marble lobby bore little resemblance to the site of constitutional violations. Digital kiosks displayed real-time bias statistics. QR codes provided instant access to complaint systems. Community Oversight Board members conducted weekly public meetings. Officer Davis had served 8 months of community service teaching bias awareness workshops. His federal testimony had exposed 17 additional cases of misconduct. 3 supervisors faced criminal charges based on his cooperation. "I was wrong about everything," Davis admitted during his final workshop session. "I let prejudice blind me to people's humanity. Judge Williams showed me what real authority looks like." Captain Moore had been demoted to patrol officer pending completion of federal bias training. The new security chief was Maria Santos, a civil rights attorney with 15 years of constitutional law experience. "We operate differently now," Santos explained to visiting policymakers. "Every interaction is monitored. Every detention is justified. Every complaint is investigated immediately. The procedural justice application had revolutionized courthouse security nationwide. Artificial intelligence tracked 2.3 million civilian interactions across 94 federal districts. Bias patterns triggered automatic federal review. Judge Anderson remained on the bench but under federal oversight. His hiring decisions required Justice Department approval. His training programs were designed by civil rights experts. "Dr. Williams taught us that judicial authority carries profound responsibility," Anderson reflected. "We serve justice, not our personal prejudices." The numbers told the story of transformation. African American detention rates had dropped 67% in the Eastern District. Complaint investigations were completed within 48 hours instead of 6 months. Public trust in federal courts increased 34%, according to community surveys. Williams herself had been appointed to the Supreme Court Reform Commission. Her courthouse confrontation had become required viewing in every federal judicial training program. "The goal was never punishment," Williams explained during her confirmation hearing. "The goal was preventing future violations through systematic change." Her approach had spread beyond courthouses. Police departments nationwide were implementing similar bias monitoring systems. The procedural justice application was being adapted for airports, border crossings, and government buildings. The live stream footage had been viewed over 50 million times. Constitutional law professors used it to demonstrate civil rights enforcement. Community activists studied Williams's methodical approach to institutional reform. She didn't fight bias with emotion, civil rights attorney Charles Brown observed. She fought it with evidence, law, and systematic accountability. The broader impact continued expanding. 12 states had enacted courthouse equality legislation based on Williams's reforms. Federal funding now required bias monitoring for all law enforcement agencies. Ashley's original live stream had become a historical document housed in the National Archives. Students, scholars, and policymakers studied every frame to understand effective constitutional advocacy. Real change happens through persistent application of law, Williams wrote in her acclaimed book, Constitutional Courage. Not through viral moments, but through systematic reform that outlasts any individual incident. The book topped bestseller lists for 8 months. Williams donated all proceeds to legal aid organizations serving underrepresented communities. Davis had found unexpected purpose in his community service. He now worked full-time for the Southern Poverty Law Center, training law enforcement officers to recognize and eliminate bias. Judge Williams saved my life, Davis reflected, not from prison, but from the hatred that was consuming me. She showed me what law enforcement should actually look like. The courthouse where it all began had become a model for constitutional rights protection. Federal judges from around the world visited to study the reform implementation. Captain Santos conducted the tours personally. This is where we learned that equality isn't theoretical, she explained to international delegations. It's practical, measurable, and achievable through systematic commitment. The Community Oversight Board included Reverend James Wilson, social worker Jennifer Thompson, and Maria Rodriguez, all former victims of courthouse bias, who now shaped policy to protect others. Dr. Williams proved that individual courage can drive institutional change, Rodriguez observed, but only when combined with systematic accountability and legal precision. Williams's legacy extended far beyond a single courthouse confrontation. Her methodical approach to civil rights enforcement had reformed federal law enforcement nationwide. The touching stories of discrimination that once characterized courthouse experiences had been replaced by real-life stories of dignity and respect. These black stories of constitutional courage reminded America that systemic change was possible through determined application of law. Life stories like Williams's demonstrated that true power came from serving justice equally for everyone, regardless of race, class, or background. Constitutional rights aren't self-executing, Williams concluded in her final speech before joining the Supreme Court Reform Commission. They require constant vigilance, systematic enforcement, and unwavering commitment to human dignity. Her words echoed through courthouses nationwide, where bias monitoring systems ensured that every civilian interaction respected constitutional principles. The revolution had been quiet, methodical, and absolutely devastating to institutional racism. Now it's your turn. Share your own experiences with bias in courthouses, airports, or government buildings in the comments below. Help us document these crucial life stories to drive continued change. Subscribe for more real-life stories of constitutional courage defeating systemic discrimination. Together, we can ensure that dignity and justice aren't privileges. They're guaranteed rights for every American. Like this video if you believe systematic change is possible. Share it to spread awareness of how law can triumph over prejudice.